Here in East Texas, stories matter. On the Right Team podcast, we bring you the best of it all. Local sports, rich history, and national takes with a hometown perspective, along with faith and inspiration to keep you moving forward. From the classroom to the field, we're about learning, growing, and celebrating the communities we call home. There's something here for everyone. Listen to the Right Team podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. The Right Team podcast. East Texas stories told right.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to From the Press Box here on the Right Team podcast. We're coming to you again from deep in the piney woods of East Texas. I am David Weaver, host of the Right Team podcast, and I have my co-host, the sports director of KMHT 103.9 FM, and the pastor of Friendship Baptist Church in Marshall, Texas, Brother Matt Paul, with me here today. And we also have a very, very special guest, always a friend of the program. Man, Matt, we just need to bring her on every day. She just adds something really chippy to you and I here.
Works for me. I wouldn't use the word chippy. That may be between you two. I don't know, but that definitely works for me.
He is, of course, none other than head coach Janae Shirley, the ETBU Tiger softball coach, who has got a busy week this week, getting ready to host once again the American Southwest Conference Tournament, which, as we sit here and record this, is actually beginning on Thursday, tomorrow. And I know you have a lot on your plate today, Coach, so thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And we're going to talk a lot about some softball here and some ETBU softball this morning. First of all, you and I talked at the beginning of the season, literally just a few days before your season opener. And these are the kinds of interviews that I like more than those preseason ones, because back then it's all about projecting. Right. I'm asking you to kind of read tea leaves and all that kind of stuff. But now you have all the data you need to know what kind of team you have and how you feel about them. What's kind of, what have you taken from the kind of team this year that you're taking into the postseason? What excites you about this particular bunch?
Well, one of the cool things I think about coaching is getting to see kids grow over the course of the year. And you're right, like projecting, we have a lot of freshmen this year. We have a lot of new kids and a lot of new kids that are playing. And one of the things for us is it's hard, you think a kid's going to do this in your program, and just based off of high school success and things like that, you project that they're going to do this. But, it's a different game, and it's a different speed, and it's a different level. And, some of them hit the ground running, and some of them it takes a little bit of time to adjust. And so this year we've gotten to see a little bit of both. That we've gotten to see, some kids like hit the ground running and really just, were able to figure out the speed of the game really quickly and make an impact huge. And then we've got to see some that just at some point in the season it clicked, and we're seeing huge changes in just like their mentality, their approach, their at-bats, and their buy-in. And so that's been really cool for us to see, first of all. But we've known from the beginning that we kind of knew what to expect pitching wise. We returned, Avery Holland and Kinsey Jones, who were a huge part of our success last year. And, Avery is a huge part of our success winning the national championship. So we were pretty confident about what we had in the mound, and added freshman Alexis Kemp, who's had a great season for us. But the dynamic we knew was going to be different. Offensively, it was going to look a little different. Defensively, we weren't sure what to expect. We basically lost a lot of infielders, and so that was a concern for us. And right now, defensively, this has been one of the better teams that we've had. Right now, I think we are number one in the country in fielding percentage, and that's a testament to like just these girls buying in and being willing to do that. So defensively and pitching wise, like we are solid. Offensively, we are different than we were last year, but these girls have done a good job of buying into what they are. And we aren't home run hitters. We don't have a lot of power kids. We have kids that can get on base, and that's our goal, is to get on base and to do stuff. And they've done a good job with that. So I'm excited to see what the different dynamic looks like in the postseason, and see where we can go from here.
thing in the history of the program, particularly under you, that has always, I think, been a strength of your ability to be versatile according to the players that you have on your roster, right? I mean, you look back at here recently with the with the Tristan Maddox and all those, all that group that left last year. Those were definitely power-based players that could put the ball in the seats at any point, any time, in any game, and their numbers showed it. And then you go and you look at this year, just to kind of highlight what you just said. I mean, as a team, you've hit 16 home runs on the year, but then you look over there at your stolen base. I mean, you guys get on. It's a walking double, walking triple. I mean, it's 132 stolen bases and 144 attempts. I didn't do the percentage on that because I'm not a math guy, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty good percentage. Caitlin Jones, of course, leads the way. She's stolen 33 bases and 34 attempts. You got a couple of other girls who were stolen over 20 bases. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here, with just the ability to adjust to the kind of players that you have. But you have to actually start playing the year and find that out, right?
Right, for sure. And it's hard. Like early in my career, which you were around for a lot of that. I mean, this is more similar to the types of teams we had early, I think, like, 8, 9, 10, those days. And then when we would get the power hitters, I had to change, like, look, we aren't going to bunt all the time. We aren't going to do these. I had to really change my mindset, but I had to realize that, if I'm going to be successful at ETBU and our staff is going to be successful here, we had to get the best players that we possibly could and then try to figure out how each team can be successful. And, sometimes some years it takes me a little bit longer to figure it out. And some years it's completely opposite than what I think. And so it's just being willing to not be stuck in the same mindset and get out of my comfort zone to be able to find a way to allow these kids to be successful.
Yeah, Coach, I feel like I don't know. I think I told you before the season started, I was maybe more excited for this season than I was last year, even though it was national runner-up. I mean, coming off a national title, kind of a defending national title thing, just because I couldn't wait to see. I knew that the circle was going to be fine, but I couldn't wait to see what some of these new players looked like. You told us that it's going to be, like we said, a different style, but for real, like, it has been fascinating to watch. I look at an Emma Boren that is just having to walk in and fill maybe the biggest shoes anybody's ever had to fill as a freshman. I look at Ryan Stratman, who just I've never seen anybody get down to first as fast as she does out of the box. It's just phenomenal. It's really the old adage is you don't rebuild, you reload. And I was kind of excited to see what that looked like, but it has been so much fun. And specifically, I want to talk about Emma. I mean, she's just so steady there. And that's a lot of pressure to have to be, okay, now you're the new Tristan Maddox, which of course that's not the case. No one's going to be that, but talk about the job that she's done stepping into that role.
Yeah, I mean, in the recruiting process, she was a kid that we watched a whole lot. And I will just say, as a player, Tristan, I would consider her a flashy player. Like, when you watch her, like, wow, like her arm and her speed and her power, like it was easy to see. Emma's was a little bit different because you had to, like, watch her multiple times and you're like, man, that kid is always on base. Like, man, I wouldn't think that player would get to that ball, but she gets to that ball. So she was a kid that she, like, didn't necessarily pass the eye test, but once you watch her, she is just like a steady player. And I think she's probably been the most steady shortstop that we've had in a long time. I mean, she is gonna, like, her throws are very consistent and she's consistent with what she does. She's a different type of player than Tristan, right? And so I think too, part of what it's allowed her, which she's never played that position before. So for us to move her from second base, which is what, naturally people are going to put her in that box because just, again, she's not a flashy player. And typically they're going to put the flashy players like at shortstop, the ones that have the fancy arms and the quick release and stuff like that. And Emma doesn't necessarily have that, but she has done a great job of, like, getting out of her comfort zone and being willing to go into a role that was probably, hard for her. And two, one of the biggest things that allowed her to make that transition was she is sharp. I mean, we would say like one or two things when we're talking about our defensive setup and stuff like that. And like we say it once and she's got it. And, there's been a lot of players that we have that it's taken them a full year to figure out, like she has an understanding of the game and she has an understanding of where she needs to be. And that's been super helpful and allowed her to have success a little bit quicker.
Well, your record overall, 34-4. You went 11-1 in the ASC, which of course leads to you being able to host the conference tournament. The third straight year that you guys have hosted it there at Taylor Field. How important is that to get that home field advantage when it comes to winning and competing for these conference championships?
Well, honestly, like we love playing at home. This year has been kind of unique for us because we haven't gotten to play at home a lot this season. And so I think for our players, it's something that, just getting more opportunities to play at home excites them. But we know what to expect with our facility and our field and how it plays and things like that. And when you go to these other places, you go to Abilene, the wind's always a factor. You go to these different places, you have so many outside factors that aren't necessarily something that you see on a regular basis. And so that's obviously like a huge deal. But this is finals week for us. And so, to have to like travel during finals week, and that's very stressful on those players. And so that allowed them the opportunity to, kind of put their academics in a box and focus on that, and softball in a different box, and not have to try to rush and take finals or do them on the road and things like that. So it's been a blessing, and our people here do an amazing job of hosting events and allow us to really focus on coaching. And so that's definitely a positive thing.
I will confess this. And I want to just get it out there so we can talk through it, because I know you're privately seething about this and have been. I know you've been following what we say here on our podcast, but I did predict a couple of weeks ago that you guys would run the table and go undefeated in conference play. And unfortunately, you almost got me to the finish line with that. You got clipped last week in one game against Hardin-Simmons, which again, I apologize for jinxing that, but
I told you.
But all of that aside, are you guys playing? Do you kind of feel, everybody talks about peaking at the right time, right? And you always want to be peaking at this particular point in the season when you are a playoff team. Do you feel like you guys are nearing that peak, or you're right in the kind of the sweet spot of where you want to be as the playoffs start?
Yeah, I definitely think that we're continuing to hit our stride and get better every day. It's not often that I walk away from games and I'm like, we lost the game. It was what it was. But if anybody was at the game that we lost, it was one of those things where like we hit the ball well in that game, and all of a sudden you see like a diving catch, or just we weren't catching the breaks. And I think everybody on this podcast right now knows, like in sports, sometimes it's like you got to have the magic, you got to have the breaks and the things like that. And sometimes that doesn't happen, and it is what it is. And in that instance, you walk away from that game, and I found out after that the girl that actually pitched that game, she had just lost her mom the previous week. And so for her, that was like a huge moment. And it's like, I'm glad she had that moment and had that things. And anytime you play somebody 4 times, it's hard to beat somebody 4 times. We're seeing that all over the country, these conferences where they have 4-game series and stuff like that. And, you'll have the number 2 team in the country, or, some of these teams like Linfield drop games because it's just hard. It's hard to beat somebody 4 times in a row. And it is what it is. And we have to face them again this next week. So, that's where we are.
Coach Hood talked about that earlier this week when we had him on, and he talked about not only was it difficult playing a 4-game series. Of course, I would think you guys are a little bit more used to it maybe than baseball is, about playing those back-to-back doubleheader things when you're on the road or at home. But not only do you have to play that 4-game series that you did last week against Hardin-Simmons. Oh, by the way, you potentially could face them again a 5th time here within a week. If everything works out, how difficult is that, overcoming the familiarity of a team particularly when it's a team that, you know, you guys are obviously the favorite sitting here. Now everybody's gunning for you and that kind of thing. Does that add a little bit more to that challenge for you guys?
I mean, I think, you know, the difference between, I think, baseball and Hood situation and ours is like I was a part of coaching in this conference where we did have teams like UT Tyler where there were years where we played them 10 times, you know, Louisiana colleges and things like that. And so we've been in this situation before, and, you know, there is part of like strategic things that you don't do in regular season because postseason matters more. And, you know, and we saw that in 2010 with some of the decisions we made early in the season that ended up benefiting us late in the season. And, you know, my hope is that that's the case, but it's like, it is what it is. And, you know, you just have to adjust to it. We can sit here and complain about it all we want, or we can adjust. And that's like kind of our mindset with how we handle our players with officials and strike zones and things like that. Like, you can't change it. Control what you can control. We can control like the effort we put out every game. It doesn't matter who we play. And we don't spend a lot of time focusing on who we play. We talk about us because we're the ones that matter. So.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, you're talking a little bit about obviously having to play Hardin-Simmons 4 games and now you roll right into the tournament, and about that last weekend, because I remember texting you after the first doubleheader, which we won both games. But I was texting you after the games, and I remember telling my wife, I was like, Janae's not happy. She's really not happy with the hitting. The texts are very short. They're like 1-word responses, I could tell. Something that I noticed, and I just wanted you to, you know, I'm still I'm loving being the play-by-play guy for ETBU softball. I'm learning so much the last few years about the game of softball as opposed to baseball. But one of the things that stood out to me, you know, the last game of the Hardin-Simmons series, we really just kind of erupted. We put up 6 runs in the last inning and then walked it off, and it just sort of happened in an instant. It looked like every hit we got that inning was back up the middle. It looked like, you know, I think I saw a shot off the wall, Elena, and I think it was maybe Macy Mathis, hard grounders up the middle. Their third baseman, I believe her name's Maddie Hubbard, was like a vacuum cleaner over there all weekend. Is that just something that the pitches were there, so they did it? Was that a kind of a point of emphasis of going up the middle with the ball? It was just what I noticed in the biggest inning we had that weekend. Everything seemed to be right back up the box. Talk a little bit about that inning and maybe how that could maybe be a springboard.
Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about just like offensively what we're trying to do. And we're trying to get on base, right? Like, that's ultimately our goal. Like, our focus this year is not necessarily batting average. It's like on base percentage. Like, we want to get on bases many times as we can. And we do that a couple ways, is like make it hard for people to get us out, right? Not chase bad pitches, have quality at bats, you know, hit by pitches, walks, you know, just quality at bats. And so we spent a lot of time looking at like fly balls versus like ground balls and line drives. And early in the season, we were popping up a lot. And, you know, we aren't a power team. So it's one thing if you're popping up a lot and, you know, 40% of those are going out of the ballpark. Well, that's not the case for our fast kids, which is half of our team right now, half of our lineup. A pop-up is just like, you know, that's dead. But for those kids, anytime they put the ball on the ground or in a spot, you know, they hit line drives, they have an opportunity for like their speed to beat it out or somebody to make a mistake. Pressure is hard, right? And so we spent a lot of time just talking about hit line drives, and the power comes, you know, those kids that can drive it out, they're going to hit it out, you know, and the ones that don't, they give themselves an opportunity to get on. And so, I mean, we have put a lot of focus into that. And, you know, we did that the 2010 year team. I mean, we spent hours and hours of just like, we're going to hit the ball on the ground. We're going to make people make plays. And that was, you know, ultimately the last play that we walked it off was a ground ball. And so that's been our focus, and they did a good job of buying into that. And hopefully that's something they can continue to, you know, buy into.
Yeah. And I gotta look, we've talked about the makeup of this team, and I know it is what it is. But I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Michaela Minshew nearly doubling her home run total in that last weekend of the season. That I watched her steadily move up in the lineup. I mean, my goodness. And it wasn't just hitting 3 home runs in a weekend. They were all pivotal home runs, either a tie game that gave us the lead that helped us win the game, or it was, boy, our lead was starting to shrink, and then she hit a big home run that launched that inning that was so critical in the last game. How important is it to see someone like that? I mean, this is an experienced player. She's really kind of just stepping into her own as a leader on this team. How important is it? How cool was it to see 3 balls leave the field in one weekend from her, and talk a little bit about the job she did?
I mean, KK's been such a huge part of our program. You know, her first year, she really bought into being a role player. You know, we had so many different types of players and older players on that team. And, you know, she really went with the, like, I'm going to be a program kid. And she is, like, the hardest worker out there, the most encouraging. You know, she is truly the type of player that we're trying to get into our program. And so, one, she leads by example. And so that's always awesome to see a kid that does that. You know, have success, but she's steadily, you know, kind of figured out what works for her, and she does a good job of making adjustments and things like that. And so it's cool to see those kids that, you know, like wait it out and go through the process and work, see them reap the benefits of their work. Because so often now, like, if they're not starting their freshman year or it's not instant, you know, they either move on or do something else or quit or stuff. And she's not like that. She's, you know, she's a team kid and she wants the team to be successful. And, you know, she pushes herself to make an impact there.
It's cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at the tournament bracket here. And again, you can find this for those out there listening, the ASC Softball Championship Tournament. All the information you need is available on the Go ETBU Tigers website. But of course, the schedule for tomorrow, the first round on Thursday, begins at 3:00 with number 2 seed Hardin Simmons playing number 3 seed Mary Hardin Baylor, and then the Tigers will play the in prime time tomorrow night, playing the number 4 seed Howard Payne, and then you'll get 3 games on Friday, and then hopefully just 1 on Saturday for the Tigers. This, and again, I go back to my experience with you and even before you at how this tournament used to be. And if you know that, you look at this and you kind of, I hate to say the word sadness, but it does kind of feel a little bit sad to see just 4 teams again. And I know the conference is starting to grow back a little bit next year, and that's great. But it does kind of bring up an interesting point about, you know, you got to beat 3 teams instead of, you know, 10 or whatever it was back in the day throughout the course of a season. So does that do anything as far as a mental dynamic that you have to challenge yourself, or you guys you've just done this so much, you just, as you said earlier, it's all about the way you guys play. It doesn't really matter the format or the opponents. Is that a bit of a challenge?
I would say no. I feel like the changes have, like, every year something different has changed, but like this is similar to like what the regional structure looks like now and things like that. And so I don't feel like half the players on the team have never been in this situation, so they don't know. And even the players that have been here the last 2 years and 3 years, it's changed so much that they've really gotten used to just like, okay, we like, tell me when we play and we're going to figure it out. And this year we kind of put them even more so, like, challenged them and did something different. We basically had a setup like most of the Northeast schools had, and they played a lot of games over spring break and did the top 25 tournament, and that was new and unique for them, and they handled that really well. And so, you know, hopefully just going with the flow is something that they've figured out and they're buying into.
Well, as we always get to this point in the season, we're always looking at regional rankings as well. And you guys in Region 10 are the number 1 team in the region with an NPI of 63.6. No one really knows, even me to this day, what that really means. But I know the higher the number, the better it is. And there's not a whole lot of teams in the country that are, over 60. So when you're sitting at 63.6, that's a pretty good NPI ranking. Does the 34-4 record, knowing what you knew coming into this season with some of the unknowns with the young players and the turnover and everything, is that a good record? Is that something that you looked back in February and said, I'll take that?
For sure. I mean, they've definitely pleasantly surprised me this year. We didn't know what to expect, and to theoretically finish regular season one more loss than we did last year with the team that we had. I feel like that's impressive. In some of those losses, we have a loss to the number 2 ranked team in the country, and we have a loss to the number 10 NPI ranked team. Some of those losses ended up later on in the moment, probably not what we expected. But as we move forward, it's like these teams have kind of filtered out, and we're like, oh, okay. Like these girls are playing with some good teams, and it's still so new with the NPI that we're trying to figure out what works. And like baseball's numbers and softball's numbers are a little bit different, and so it's like figuring out what we need to do scheduling wise. Like I had that under control when we were doing like rankings and stuff like that. I knew that you had to play good teams. It didn't matter. You had to play good teams and the best teams that you possibly could. And now it's a little different setup. And so it's been challenging for me, I think, with every other Division III coach, softball coach in the country, is like, how do we build our schedule to set us up in a situation to where at the end of the year, we're in the top and have an opportunity for a at-large bid, which that's ultimately the goal.
Just for people who maybe are on this broadcast, and David and I have talked about ETBU softball. They know ETBU softball is a heck of a program, but they're hearing all this NPI talk and they're like, what in the world is that? I know it's how crucial a determining factor it is, but talk a little bit about what the NPI ranking is and how it impacts the postseason selection process.
So previous to the NPI,
and explain it in a way that dummies like me can understand.
So last year was the first full season of utilizing the NPI. And previous to that, there was basically a system that put out all these numbers, and it gave you numbers of importance. So things like strength of schedule, win-loss percentage, and ranked win-losses. And they all had different values. But there was also like a human component in it where you had ranking committees who compared these and basically looked at your wins versus these teams were better than your losses to these teams versus, they compared teams. So there was a lot of human component in it. Well, now it's literally a computer system, and it's like each value, the committee of that group. So like the softball committee decides the importance of strength of schedule and the importance of win losses. And, every sport chose like a different value, like they call them the dials of what they're going to set them at. And right now it's just, we have no idea because there's so many factors, especially in Division III. Like we'll use our region, for example. I mean, our region is a very geographically large, but it's the smallest, number of teams in our region. And so the numbers are always pretty skewed within our region in a lot of ways. But it seems like right now for the NPI, it's actually benefited our region a little bit. I think, I don't know. Right now we have quite a few teams in our region that are ranked in the top 8 and 9. So like Redlands, I think, is 9. Linfield is 7, TLU 6, and we're 5. So that's, a ton of teams within the top 10 within our region of 35 teams. And so I don't know, we're still all figuring it out, and I don't know if it's something's gonna change or we're dealing with it, but it's taken out the human component.
Yeah. I would, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, and you mentioned the size of the region. This has not changed in the 25 plus years that I've been following it. When you say the largest region, it blows my mind. You apparently have 10 regions, and region 10, which is your region, includes teams in Texas, all the way out to California, all the way up to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Like half the country is in your region. The other 9 are divided up, I guess, east of us for the most part, or maybe north, which I will never understand that thinking as to how that region is so large. Have you ever gotten an explanation as to why?
Well, I think just geographically where Division III teams are, there's no other way to really do it. You know, you have the 35 teams or whatever, which more recently Trinity and Southwestern moved conferences. So I don't think they're technically in our region anymore. But it's like, I don't know that there's any other way for them to do it, just with the geographic landscape of what Division III looks like. A majority of those teams are on the East Coast. In the Northeast, you know, you have teams that we think it's normal to drive to Sul Ross 12 hours, and their conference, they don't go outside an hour. There's a lot of teams that have, you know, situations like that. And it's just different for us. And so with that, we have to deal with the challenges of it.
Yeah. And, you know, I know obviously we don't want to speculate, and I know one thing at a time. I know the drill with all that, with the conference tournament, but given the MPI and what we know of it now and what you've seen with your ranking being number 5, would it be safe to assume y'all are expecting to host regional, or is it one of these things where you still feel like you got business to take care of this weekend?
I mean, I definitely think that we have business to take care of. I do think that the girls have done a great job of, you know, it ultimately comes down to your body of work the entire season. So they've done a great job the entire season that, you know, they gave themselves a safety net for this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They provided themselves a safety net. And I think that even if we were to lose out in this tournament and get 2 more losses, we're still in high enough rankable position that we will likely get an at-large bid. But I think a lot of the factor is going to end up being that right now they protect the top 8. We have 3 teams in our region right now, and that could change over the week. You know, Redlands could slide into the top 8. We could slide. It could change in what they're willing to do. Are they going to fly all these teams in because those 8 teams are protected in this, or those 4 teams are protected in the region because they're in the top 8? Are they going to fly all these people here? Or are they going to do the easy thing and fly one, you know, each of those teams somewhere else? I don't know. And every year you never know what to guess. I would assume we will probably, you know, if we host, it would be teams like Belhaven. You know, we'd see a lot of similar faces.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, you know, one of the things that I feel like this conversation comes up every year, but I really do feel like ETBU does a fantastic job as a institution hosting, whether it's basketball, baseball, softball. Do you think that plays in, that when they know they've got a good and reliable host, that does that ever play into the selection process?
I mean, I definitely think it does. You know, they want to make sure that the student athlete experience is a quality one. And, you know, when I was a part of the national committee, that was like huge conversations that we finally got to the point where I annoyed them enough, I guess, to convince them that having, you know, championships themselves on campuses makes for a better quality experience. And I think they got to see that when we got the opportunity to host, and then after that, Illinois Wesleyan. And so they're really seeing that universities care. And so that's opened the door, but also that, you know, the number one factor should not be if a team is like ranked a little bit higher in them hosting, because some of these facilities aren't set up to, you know, they don't have the staffing, they don't have the facilities, they don't have restrooms, they don't have all these things that just lessens the student athlete experience. And, you know, you don't want to go to a regional tournament and play on a field that is horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we did in 2004 on a parking lot, and we were the number 1 team in the country. I know you're going with that. I agree with you. I'm right there with you on that one. I'll never forget that trip.
Me either.
Yeah. So again, we'll try to wrap this up here. I know you're busy today, and I want you to be busy. I want you to go to work. But what can fans who are looking for something to do this weekend around here? And again, if you've missed any kind of ETBU softball over the last few years, I mean, there's been 2 World Series there, and is it 2 or is it 3? I know it's at least 2.
We've had 2, so
You've had 2.
2024, and then we will host it again in 2020.
Yes, so you're on the rotation. But and so if you've missed out to this point, I don't know what to tell you, but what if for somebody's looking for something to do and looking for some good entertainment, some good sporting action here? What can they expect to see at this weekend's ASC tournament when it comes to a fan experience?
I do think what our conference has been, travels pretty well, and it's just a nice setup out here. Hopefully we'll have some good weather, and it'll be something that they can come out and enjoy some good softball. Our conference has been one of those that, there's been a lot of back and forth this year. We've had Howard Payne, last weekend took a couple games from Marathon Baylor. So there's going to be some, I think, exciting games, and, it's a great atmosphere with great facilities, and I definitely encourage them to be a part of it. It's a really neat atmosphere.
Well, David, I think one of the things is, and, Coach Shirley knows this, I've had several of her players on my show on KMHT. For ETBU, you've just got a bunch of really quality human beings that are on that squad, that are positive, uplifting. They're entertaining to watch. Coach, I feel like at some point I may have to have a special show just talk about Lainey Brown. That girl is dancing in the dugout every time when I'm on the broadcast, and then you'll just throw her in there, a freshman, to pinch hit, and she seems to get a pinch hit about 90% of the time. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but there is an energy, there's a positivity. Of course, every time I have them on my show, it's very Christ-centered, the way they carry themselves. So, David, I'll just jump in and say it's not just what you're going to see on the field. Off the field, it's a pretty cool environment too.
Yeah, we've been really incredibly lucky that, what we're trying to do here is, yes, ultimately, we want to win championships, but that's not the, end game for us. It's developing and growing just quality people that can leave here and lead others and make an impact in their communities. And, we've been really fortunate to have players that want to do that and want to be a part of that. And, part of this is them still understanding that it is a game, and that's really hard in today's culture and today's society, is for them to change the mindset that they've been told all through travel ball and all through high school, that if your worth as a human being is wrapped up into going 4 for 4, and it is a game, and it's supposed to be fun, and it's not supposed to it is it's a game of failure, and you got to learn how to deal with that. But we've had some great kids like Lainey and Juju St. John that just make it fun and exciting, and they are the loudest human beings I know. Yesterday I walked out to practice, and Juju was on the she turned on music, and she's on the loudspeaker singing the national anthem. She's trying to convince me that she's capable, and every day she's going to give us a new experience. So they are fun to watch, and they're fun to be around. And, it's cool to get excited for kids that are fun to watch and are just good human beings. So,
yeah.
And it's almost impossible. Of course, talent is ultimately what you want as a coach on your team, but it is, I would just say this, and I think you would agree with me. You don't win championships without having those types of players in your dugout as well.
Oh, for sure. It's, you take, we'll just use those 2 kids as example. You take them out of the dugout, we don't have the record we have at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important part of what you're doing out there, and proud to be a part of it. Coach, I want to thank you again for joining us here this morning. You're one of the few, I think, who are now multiple guests on the podcast. So put that on your wall. I know that's important.
It is.
But he's Matt, and I'm David, and this is From the Press Box on the Right Team podcast. If you enjoyed our show with Coach Shirley, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at the Right Team podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook for additional content and updates you won't want to miss. I want to thank you again, Coach, for being with us this morning on the show and talking a little ASC and ETBU softball.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you,
That's
Coach.
That's Coach Janae Shirley with ETBU softball. Again, they are hosting the American Southwest Conference softball tournament beginning Thursday with a couple of games, and then championship game will be on Saturday. And it is our hope, of course, that the Tigers will defend that ASC championship and make it a sweep up there with their their friends up there at the baseball field. That's nice knowing that you guys can sweep that thing in the spring after some. So let's just put some long weekends in places, hoping that we could win those things. And now you guys have it under control. Yeah, making it look easy. Anyway, stay tuned, subscribe, and don't miss an episode. We've got something for everyone on this podcast. Thank you again for listening and supporting us right here from the heart of the East Texas Piney Woods. Until next time, as always, keep writing your story.
At Stiles Electric, we believe in doing the job right every single time. Since 1999, we've built a reputation for being reliable, professional, and experienced across commercial projects throughout East Texas. And right now, we're growing. If you're an electrician or looking to start a career in the electrical trade, we want to hear from you. At Stiles Electric, you're not just another employee, you're part of a team that takes pride in its work and its people. Join a company where service speaks for itself. Apply today and power your future with Stiles Electric.
Connecting students to their passion and equipping them for their purpose. East Texas Baptist University is a Christ-centered institution committed to challenging and encouraging each student in mind, body, and spirit. With over 45 undergraduate programs and 14 master's degrees, ETBU's educational experience enables you to discover your purpose, find your path, and pursue your calling. Join the Tiger family today. It's not too late. Apply today at etbu.edu/apply.
Did you know that someone somewhere is talking about you? Yes, your school district, your business, your church, your nonprofit group is always the subject of a conversation somewhere. Maybe it's Facebook gossip, maybe it's talk around the water cooler, maybe it's written in a newspaper or a blog somewhere. At Right Team Services, we work with you to manage that conversation more effectively, to give all of your stakeholders an opportunity to hear your message. We help you create a culture of transparency in your organization that makes your customers and stakeholders feel comfortable as part of the story, and as a result, will help your business or school district become a more effective, trusted member of your community. Contact me today at rightteamservices@gmail.com to learn more about how Right Team can help you tell your story.